Surrounded by flickering candlelight that reflected off endless piles of gold and jewels, Dolores nervously sat down at the grand dining table across from the intimidating man. Her hands shook as she tried to make sense of what was happening. She was sitting face to face with Bartholomew Jew Bourgeois, the richest man in the world. She knew him publicly as the head of one of the 7 great families, but she also knew his secret. He was a demon disguised as a human. Bartholomew began by complimenting her, saying her abilities were impressive. When she looked up in surprise, he explained that he had examined her investment history. He mentioned her decision to invest a huge amount of money in the Cindy Wendy Merchant Group, and called it a brave move. He admitted that her quick decisions and sharp judgment had genuinely impressed him. Confused by such unexpected praise, Dolores could only whisper a quiet thank you. As he watched her from across the luxurious table, she suddenly remembered the Night Hound's warning. He had told her that Bartholomew was a master at manipulating people with his words, and that she needed to stay alert. Realizing she had almost been influenced, she steadied herself. Regaining her calm, she replied politely that he was being too generous. Bartholomew paused, his expression unreadable. Then, in a casual tone, he shared something that shocked her. He said that Cardinal Humbert had visited him earlier that day and commented that he had been seeing many important figures from Quo Vadis recently. Hearing Humbert's name made Dolores freeze. She already knew Humbert was working with heretics, but she had never imagined that his corruption had reached someone as powerful as the head of the bourgeois family. Seeing her reaction, Bartholomew asked if his words had made her uncomfortable. He pointed out that, as the saintess, she belonged to the New Testament faction of the church. He explained that he had strong ties with priests from the Old Testament faction, and said it would be unfortunate if she distanced herself from him because of political differences. Reaching out with a gesture of fake friendliness, he continued trying to influence her. He claimed he wanted good relations with the New Testament faction too, but said they judged the bourgeois family harshly, calling them inhuman and evil. He argued that because of this bias, the good deeds his family tried to do went unrecognized. After taking a sip of wine, he asked her whether using great wealth to perform great acts of good wasn't something righteous. Dolores stayed silent, her expression growing firm. She knew that when a demon spoke of good, it meant something entirely different from what humans meant. Her silence seemed to confuse Bartholomew. Suddenly, she stopped pretending. She slammed her hands on the table, anger replacing her fear. She began listing his horrific crimes: his deal with the demon Dantalion, which involved feeding orphans to the creature, his corruption of Quo Vadis through the indulgence system, and his support of heretics to create chaos so he could take control of the holy city. Leaning forward, she said the only reason he could call such things good was because of what he really was. With absolute certainty in her eyes, she accused him directly, shouting that he was a demon. For a moment the room went silent. Then Bartholomew slowly smiled, and a low chuckle escaped him. The chuckle rose into a loud, wild laugh that echoed through the vast golden chamber. The force of his laughter shook the mountains of gold coins around them. Dolores clutched her head in pain as the sound pierced her ears. Through the noise she yelled at him, asking why he wasn't afraid, why he didn't fear someone who knew the terrible truth about him and his allies. His laughter faded into a mocking sneer. He dismissed the idea of fear, saying it was impossible. He stood up and towered over her. With arrogant confidence he asked what human could ever frighten him. In an instant he leaned in close. His face twisted into a monstrous grin as he grabbed her chin, overwhelming her with his presence. But just as he was about to continue, he stopped. A flash of confusion crossed his features as he sensed something wrong. His eyes shifted to the entrance of the vault, where the wooden carts that had carried the gifts now lay broken. From the shadows near the shattered crates, a pair of glowing red eyes glared at him. Bartholomew's own demonic eyes widened in real shock. A crushing pressure filled the room, catching even the demon lord off guard. A violent burst of red, demonic energy erupted from one of the broken crates. Out of that explosion of power a new figure appeared. It was the Night Hound, surrounded by a fierce red aura. He announced that the one human Bartholomew should truly fear was standing right there. Bartholomew instinctively stepped between the newcomer and Dolores, shocked by the overwhelming power coming from what looked like an ordinary human body. He also caught a faint familiar scent, the smell of the demon Beelzebub. As he connected the clues, he finally understood who he was facing. Fixing his glowing red eyes on the demon lord, Bartholomew asked if the newcomer was the infamous Night Hound, the mysterious figure causing chaos in the capital. In response, the Night Hound reached to his side and drew out the jagged demonic dagger named Beelzebub. The blade glowed with evil energy as he formally addressed his opponent. Bartholomew, head of the bourgeois family. The fight was about to begin. Without another word, the Night Hound launched his attack. He leaped from the top of a mound of gold, his masked face briefly reflected in a single coin as he flew through the air. As he came down on Bartholomew with his dagger raised, he declared that he had come to kill the corpse flesh demon. Their first clash created a massive explosion, sending gold coins scattering everywhere. Reacting quickly, Dolores summoned a protective barrier of golden light around herself. Bartholomew, completely unfazed, let out a small amused laugh and remarked that his opponent seemed to know how to use a blade. Before the Night Hound could respond, Bartholomew summoned a demonic sword of his own and easily blocked the attack, boasting that he too was quite skilled. The two fighters exchanged furious blows. The Night Hound swung his red dagger with incredible speed, but Bartholomew parried every strike, forcing him to back away and reconsider his strategy. As the Night Hound studied Bartholomew's weapon, a shocking realization struck him. He recognized the sword, a blade sharp enough to cut steel and corruptive enough to turn any wielder into a tyrant. It was the legendary demonic sword of the Baskerville family, a weapon that should have been sealed away. Balmung, the flaming demon blade. Holding Balmung, Bartholomew stood ready. The Night Hound could only stare in disbelief, wondering how this demon had obtained such a powerful and heavily guarded weapon. With a smug grin, Bartholomew explained that in his youth he had been such a talented swordsman that the previous head of the Baskerville family had been greatly impressed. According to Bartholomew, the old patriarch had begged him to become his student and had even gifted him the legendary sword Balmung. With that boast, he said that the Night Hound was simply unlucky to be fighting him. Then he leaped across the piles of gold to attack again. The Night Hound jumped in to meet the attack, blocking the flaming sword with his small dagger. A furious exchange followed, their weapons clashing in a blur of red and gold light as Bartholomew unleashed a non-stop rain of strikes. As they fought, Bartholomew grew frustrated. He snarled, demanding to know how a mere human could know his true identity as a corpse-flesh demon, and how he had killed his demonic comrades. Their blades rang loudly through the vault as Bartholomew shouted that the Night Hound's foolish games were over. Charging forward with all his power, he drove the glowing demonic sword straight into the Night Hound's chest, delivering what looked like a fatal strike. Across the room, Dolores screamed the Night Hound's name in horror as blood splattered across the golden floor. Believing he had won, Bartholomew stood over his fallen enemy. With a cruel grin, he promised to chew on the Night Hound's corpse and keep his head in the vault until it rotted. Telling him to see it as an honor, he grabbed the hilt of the sword still lodged in the Night Hound's body, preparing to finish him. But just as he was about to deliver the final blow, a calm, clear voice cut through the air, calling him pathetic. The words stopped Bartholomew instantly, his arrogant look shifting into pure disbelief. Still impaled by the sword, the Night Hound continued insulting him. He said Bartholomew was pathetic for relying on such a crude weapon to win, and that the previous Baskerville family head was just as pathetic for giving away his family's treasured sword. As he spoke, a powerful surge of red demonic energy burst from his body, his eyes glowing with renewed and terrifying strength. Bartholomew, still gloating, mocked him for being all talk and unable to survive a single attack. But his confusion grew when he tried to pull the sword out and found it stuck. The Night Hound had grabbed the blade with his bloody bare hand, holding it tightly. The Night Hound then asked if Bartholomew was sure he was all talk. As he began channeling his power, pouring his red mana into his own dagger, Bartholomew's eyes widened in disbelief at the immense energy coming from him. He recognized the skill as the legendary solid aura, a technique only a true swordmaster could use, and he could not understand how his young opponent had become so powerful. Before Bartholomew could even understand what was happening, the Night Hound used his own ultimate technique, sending power through his dagger. He performed Baskerville's seventh sword form, releasing a storm of destructive red energy across the chamber. It ended in a huge explosion shaped like a vortex, shaking the whole vault and throwing shockwaves and gold coins everywhere. Dolores, watching from a safe distance, was stunned. She realized with amazement that the Night Hound had become far stronger than he had been during their fight with the demon Dantalion, and she wondered what could have caused such a sudden rise in his power. When the dust cleared, the Night Hound stood ready, his red aura swirling. He stared at his enemy. Bartholomew, badly wounded and bleeding, had to lean on his sword just to remain standing. The Night Hound saw that Bartholomew had survived only by pulling his sword free at the last second, but the demon lord was now extremely weak and would not last long. Holding his wounds, Bartholomew had to accept that the Night Hound's earlier wins were no accident. But even injured, he started smiling again. He mocked them, asking whether they really believed they would escape alive. He said the vault could not be opened from inside and that it was locked on a timer. Only after an hour passed would the doors open from the outside. He went on laughing as he said his guards would rush in the moment the doors opened. But his crazed laughter stopped when Dolores took advantage of his distraction. She shouted that she was using holy light and blasted him with a powerful burst of divine energy. Caught completely off guard, the demon lord screamed as the holy power burned him. Dolores held up the mirror of truth, a tool that showed a person's real identity, and asked whether anyone would believe him once they saw what the mirror revealed. Bartholomew cried out, shocked that she possessed such a strong holy item. As the mirror's light grew brighter, his human appearance melted away, and his true demonic face appeared underneath. With his disguise gone, Bartholomew stopped pretending. A huge, frightening grin spread across his now fully revealed demonic face. He said with both amusement and menace that their preparations were much greater than he had expected. His body began to change. His right arm swelled into a huge, deformed limb with long yellow claws. He slammed it onto the golden floor with incredible force. He muttered irritably that he had expected to deal only with the Night Hound, and had never imagined that the Saints of Quo Vadis would also be involved, making things much harder. Standing beside the Night Hound, Dolores watched in fear as Bartholomew's body twisted into something monstrous. The demon gave a warped smile and declared that the situation had become very interesting. He said he would no longer restrain himself and would show them his true form. Purple flesh-like tendrils crawled up his sword, Balmung fusing the legendary weapon with his changing body. His whole body trembled and expanded, muscles and flesh twisting as his power grew. Two large leathery wings burst through his clothes and opened wide. Not willing to fall behind, the Night Hound Vicar prepared for the next stage of the fight. He gripped his own demonic weapon, which changed shape in his hand, turning into a massive jagged red greatsword. Without wasting time, he swung it and sent two enormous red mana slashes at the transforming demon. The attacks struck true, forcing the fully transformed creature to its knees for a moment. But the monster was far from defeated. It slowly lifted its head, revealing a horrifying wolf-like snout and a mouth full of sharp yellow teeth twisted into a vicious grin. A huge burst of dark energy exploded from its body, completely blocking the Night Hound's attack. Then the creature released a deafening, reality-distorting roar. The force of the sound sent both the Night Hound and Dolores flying backward. When the Night Hound helped her up, the terrified Dolores stammered, unable to comprehend what she was seeing. She asked if this was truly Bartholomew Dubourgeois' real form. The creature, now a terrifying mix of human and monster, with giant wings, horns, and a wolf-like snout, glared down at them. Its transformation was now complete. The being was actually Belial, known as the Sixth Corpse, an S+ ranked threat. Belial was one of the 10 great calamities, an immortal natural enemy of humanity. An ancient text described its curse. Teeth would rot in the body and the household of those touched by it. As the heroes watched in horror, even the vault reacted to the demon's presence. Mountains of gold coins began to shake. Dolores shouted a warning, pointing out that the gold was rising into the air and swarming toward the demon. She watched in disbelief as the coins gathered around Belial's body, magically healing the terrible wounds the Night Hound had just inflicted. The demon explained that it had a unique and terrifying ability called the Golden Veins. In a world where money ruled everything, it said that financial power became real power. All the treasures stored in the vault were not just riches, they were its life force and strength. With a monstrous growl, it claimed that as long as wealth continued to have value in the world, it could never be killed, and the more wealth surrounded it, the stronger it would become. Dolores felt hopeless, and her fear began to overwhelm her. The Night Hound noticed her shaking, gently took her hand, and called her name to get her attention. He told her that she didn't need to be afraid, and reminded her of her own strength. He told her to remember how she had resisted Dantalion's mental corruption and awakened her true power to overcome fear. He insisted that she believe in herself. Then he asked her an important favor. He wanted her to use the same powerful buff she had given him in their previous battle. Dolores looked at him with uncertainty. She thought about the soul resonance they had once shared. She admitted to herself that she had tried many times to recreate that power on her own, but she had never succeeded. Holding her hands together, she wondered if she could really do it again now, when it mattered most. Her thoughts went back to all the times the Night Hound had fought demons alone. She remembered her own awakening, and slowly her doubt turned into determination. She knew she couldn't let him face this battle without her. A shining cross appeared in her eye as she promised herself that she would never let him fight alone again. Finding her courage, she stood behind him, stretched out her hands and declared loudly that she would do it. The brilliant golden light began rising from her, as she recited a verse saying that the Lord was his shield and weapon, and relying only on his own strength would lead to defeat. She continued praying, her hands clasped as holy light surrounded them. She called for a mighty general to appear and fight for her, asking for the warrior's sacred name. But the ritual faced a problem. She turned to the Night Hound and explained that the buff would be far stronger if she knew his true name. He was startled, realizing he couldn't reveal who he really was at such an important moment. Before they could resolve anything, the demon Belial, now fully healed, rushed at them. The Night Hound was shocked by how fast Belial had recovered, but he didn't have time to react. Belial slammed a powerful elbow into his side, sending him flying into a mountain of gold coins. He crashed into the pile and lay there, seriously wounded, bleeding from his chest. Dolores cried his name in horror. Belial ignored the fallen Night Hound. Its huge twisted arm had turned into a massive blade, and it aimed the weapon at the helpless Dolores. With a furious roar, Belial swung the blade downward, shouting for the Saintess to die. Dolores could only look up in terror, tears streaming down her face as she accepted that her life was about to end. But just before the blade could hit her, a bright red light shot through the air and formed a huge, complex magic circle directly in front of the attack. The demon was completely caught off guard. The circle, with a large reptilian eye in the center, easily blocked the powerful blow. A calm, ancient voice came from the circle, greeting Belial and saying it had been a long time. Shocked, Belial demanded to know who was interfering. The magic circle, hovering protectively before a stunned Dolores, revealed itself as the power of the demon Decarabia. Belial repeated the name in disbelief, then erupted in anger. He accused Decarabia of forgetting their mission to open the gates of destruction, and of betraying demonkind by taking the side of humans. Decarabia calmly answered that betrayal was not the right word. It said it had never truly belonged to anyone, and had simply made a contract with a human. Its mission was now whatever its contractor requested. Decarabia then declared its new purpose. For the next 1,000 years, it would act as a shield for Dolores and for all of humanity. Belial, furious, called Decarabia a cockroach and demanded to know if it was ready to face the wrath of the other demons that would soon come from the gates of destruction. Decarabia dismissed his threat, saying they could deal with that when the time came. It then noted something strange, that its own power was fading, while Belial's aura was growing stronger. Belial, confused, asked what it meant, but the question was only a distraction. Using that moment, the Night Hound, now recovered, leaped into the air behind Belial and released a powerful slash of red energy across the demon's back. As he landed, he reflected that he had aimed to cut through Belial's neck, but the strike had not been deep enough to finish the demon off. The demon Belial was completely shocked. It used its golden veins ability to rapidly heal the deep cut on its back with a swarm of coins. It wondered how the Night Hound was still alive after an attack that should have destroyed all his internal organs. The Night Hound stood firm. Even though he was clearly wounded and bleeding from the chest, his survival came from his demonic dagger, Beelzebub, which carried the S-rank ability Immortal Basilisk and the A+ rank Silent Heal. Realizing his opponent was far from an ordinary human, Belial understood this would not be an easy fight. Meanwhile, Dolores was unharmed but trapped inside a protective red magic circle created by Decarabia. She thanked the ancient demon for saving her, but immediately begged it to remove the barrier so she could go help the Night Hound. Decarabia refused without hesitation. Its single eye narrowed as it explained that it had received only one order: to keep the Saintess safe. It could not act beyond that command. Dolores, shocked and frustrated, began questioning what this strange being actually was. Then a sudden realization hit her. She sensed the Night Hound's own mana flowing from Decarabia. She understood that the protective shield wasn't the demon's choice. It had been set up by the Night Hound himself to ensure her safety. Unable to intervene, she could only watch from behind the barrier as the furious battle continued outside. The Night Hound and Belial fought in a brutal high-speed clash. Their powerful strikes lit up the golden vault as both fighters landed blows and took injuries. Belial's monstrous form seemed to enjoy the violence, a cruel smirk forming on its face even as it was wounded. The battle intensified. With its superior raw strength, Belial delivered a devastating hit that knocked the Night Hound's weapon from his hand and sent him flying across the chamber. After hitting the ground hard, the Night Hound quickly judged the situation. Belial, though injured, was still stunned by the Night Hound's strength. The Nighthound himself could hardly believe that he, an intermediate swordmaster, was struggling this much. His mind raced as he compared this demon to every powerful enemy he had ever faced. His conclusion was clear. Belial was without question the hardest and most overwhelming foe he had ever fought. He quickly identified the real problem. Every time he landed a strike, Belial absorbed more treasure from the vault to heal and become stronger. It was practically an endless source of regeneration. He knew he could not win a drawn-out battle, but he had a secret plan. His goal was not to overpower Belial, but to outlast him. He only needed to hold on a little longer because time was on their side. Meanwhile, trapped inside Decarabia's shield, Dolores refused to stay idle. She began chanting a powerful prayer, her voice firm. She spoke of demons rising to swallow the land, and urged the faithful to fight without fear, for victory would come through truth. As she finished, saying that truth lived and its kingdom was eternal, she stretched out her hands, her expression filled with determination. A massive wall of holy fire burst from the ground, separating the two fighters in a brilliant wave of golden divine energy. Belial, covered by the holy flames, only scoffed. It asked if she really believed such simple holy magic could stop it. With one powerful roar, the demon unleashed its own dark energy, shattering Dolores's barrier completely. The force threw her backward, and she was shocked that her holy fire had broken so easily. But she did not hesitate. She prepared to cast the spell again, repeating her prayer with renewed strength. Her defiance drew the demon's full murderous attention. Snarling, Belial mocked her, calling her a saint, and said that if she was so eager to die first, it would gladly grant her wish. Just as Belial was about to strike her, the Nighthound appeared behind it in a flash of red. With his dagger ready, he stated that he was Belial's true opponent. But the demon wasn't worried. A vicious smile spread across its face as its eyes glowed with a brilliant golden light. Suddenly, golden snake-like tendrils of energy burst from the piles of coins, shooting toward the Nighthound and coiling around him, trapping him completely. He struggled, twisting his body as he tried to break free. With his enemy restrained, Belial turned its attention back to Dolores. It raised a huge, grotesque arm and began to gloat. It asked if she could see the true power of the wealth she hated so much. It said that inside this vault, both the Nighthound's attacks and her childish holy magic were completely useless. With a final threatening glare, it told her to spend her last moments regretting the day she rejected the wealth born from human greed. Then, releasing its ultimate attack, Belial lunged forward, surrounded by a storm of sharp golden projectiles, roaring for its enemies to be torn apart. The golden attack fell on Dolores, who was still trapped inside Decarabia's protective circle. But to her surprise, the circle did not break. Instead, it tightened around her, as if trying to protect her from the impact. The projectiles struck the barrier again and again. Dolores was hurt by the force, but she realized she wasn't the one taking the direct hits. With tears running down her face, she looked up. Her clothes were covered in fresh blood, not her own. Standing in front of her, shielding her with his body, was the Nighthound. The golden projectiles had pierced him in several places, leaving him badly injured. Dolores stared in shock, barely able to whisper his name. Blood poured from his wounds, staining the gold coins beneath him. Even with golden weapons sticking out of his body, he remained standing, refusing to let her get hurt. Behind the red barrier, Dolores looked up at him, feeling guilty that he had been wounded again because of her. The Nighthound refused to fall. He grabbed the golden weapons lodged in him, and using a surge of red demonic energy, shattered them. Seeing how badly he was hurt, Dolores pressed herself against the barrier, begging for him to get healing magic at once. She pushed desperately against the red shield, trying to escape and help him. Floating inside the circle, she wondered why the barrier had returned at all. She begged it to let her out, saying she needed to help, but Decarabia's eye told her that its master had made the barrier much stronger than before, and it couldn't be broken easily. The Nighthound looked back at her and told her firmly that she must not come out. He warned her that it was far too dangerous. Then he leapt away from the barrier and charged back into the fight, facing the swirling golden energy the demon was summoning. Dolores could only watch him go, her face full of fear and tears. Belial attacked again, summoning countless sharp golden blades that filled the air. The Nighthound prepared himself, his red eyes glowing as he gripped his huge crimson greatsword. When the golden blades rained down, he fought back, swinging his weapon in a rapid burst of red slashes that met the attack. Red and gold clashed violently, and the golden blades shattered, stopping the demon's assault. Among the falling fragments, the Nighthound glared at Belial, still standing and ready for more. Belial, unfazed, lifted its massive, ugly arm to prepare another attack. With great force, it snashed its blade downward, slamming the Nighthound into the ground and sending him flying. He lay among the scattered gold coins, his body heavily damaged, blood splattered across his face, and he grit his teeth, refusing to give in. Angry at his endurance, Belial unleashed an even stronger attack. Controlling the treasure around them, it formed a huge fist made of solid gold, and raised it high above the fallen warrior. Then the giant fist came crashing down, aiming to crush him completely. Looking up from the ground, the Nighthound's eyes widened in shock at the overwhelming power coming toward him. Meanwhile, trapped in Decarabia's barrier, Dolores fought desperately. She refused to just watch. She struck the magical shield with her bare hands again and again, trying to break free. But all she managed to do was injure herself. Her hands and arms soon became bloody. Despite the pain, she kept hitting the barrier. Holy light covered her eyes like a blindfold as she put all her remaining strength into trying to escape. It made no difference. Blood pooled at her feet from her wounds. Decarabia watched her, its eyes noting the state of her hands as it spoke to the saints. When Dolores realized how helpless she was, her strength left her and she fell to her knees. Overwhelmed with despair, she stared at her trembling, bloodied hands, hating that she couldn't do anything to help. On her knees, Dolores thought about her power. Her divine strength, she knew, came from pure faith in God and the ideals of justice and equality. But now she felt her holy power was useless against a demon fueled by human greed and the worship of wealth. She remembered her battle with the demon Dantalion, when she believed she had pushed past her limits and awakened her potential. She had thought this time would be different, that she would stand proudly beside the Nighthound and help him with her own strength. But those hopes crumbled when she remembered his order for her to stay inside the barrier, and his warning that it was too dangerous as he rushed back into the fight alone. The feeling of being a burden crushed her. Tears of frustration and self-hatred ran down her face as she cursed her own weakness. Meanwhile, the battle goes on. The badly wounded Nighthound ignores his pain. Blood drips onto the golden floor from his injuries, but he forces himself to stand again, stepping through his own blood with renewed determination. His red dagger glows as he charges at the demon Belial. In a flash of red light, he swings his blade with incredible speed and cleanly cuts off the demon's huge arm. He glares at the monster, his will unbroken. But the demon is not defeated so easily. The Nighthound's eyes widen in shock as Belial instantly closes the distance and lands a powerful, unexpected blow. The force sends the Nighthound flying across the room. He hits the ground hard and slumps over, bleeding heavily from a huge wound in his chest. He realizes he has crashed inside the very barrier he created to protect Dolores. He curses as he examines his worsening condition. His mana is being drained far faster than he expected. His solid aura and the heavy mana cost of maintaining Decarabia's barrier are consuming his strength at an alarming rate. Worse still, even the strong healing ability of his demonic dagger is beginning to weaken. He knows that simply holding out until their planned time will not be enough. If he cannot deliver a final fatal strike to Belial, who is already regenerating his severed arm with a swarm of gold coins, then all their efforts will be meaningless. He considers using a last desperate technique that would require all his remaining mana. He doubts whether the incomplete skill will even be enough. His dark thoughts are suddenly interrupted by a gentle touch. To his surprise, Dolores has pushed her hand through the supposedly unbreakable barrier, golden light shining from her palm. He turns to look at her as she stands there with her arms outstretched, her hands bloodied from the effort. With new resolve, she says she will fight with him. She says she can no longer stand by and watch him suffer while trying to protect her. The Nighthound tries to stop her, telling her she has already done more than he could ask for. But she cuts him off, insisting with firm conviction that it is because she is weak that she must act. With tears in her eyes, she looks at her hands glowing with holy power and asks whether he truly believes she is a burden instead of a help. Her words hit him deeply, and he falls silent. Inside, he calls himself a fool. He realizes that in all his battles for life and death, he has never once hesitated because of fear. He forces himself to his feet, his battered body filled with new purpose. He believes that overcoming any challenge has always been his path, and protecting the saints is no different. He finally answers her. He tells her that nothing could be further from the truth. He explains that she is a precious companion, a soul who awakened her power at his side. Because of that bond, she is someone he is sworn to protect, no matter the cost. Standing protectively in front of her once again, his red eyes burning with resolve, he prepares to face the demon with his ally now truly beside him. As the battle rages, Dolores recalls a memory from her childhood. A younger version of herself runs through a sunlit church calling for the Pope. She throws herself into his arms, and he gently asks his saint what is wrong. Sobbing, she tells him she had a terrible dream about a great evil swallowing the world. She asks what would happen if such a dream came true, crying that her divine power is too weak to save anyone. The Pope comforts her, wiping her tears. He comments on her kind heart, saying she worries about others even in her nightmares. Kneeling before her, he places a gentle hand on her head. He explains that although her power feels small now, true divinity grows from a heart that believes in God and in itself. He acknowledges that faith can be lonely, but he predicts that one day, when her faith meets the genuine trust of another, when she finds a true companion to walk with her, her power will become far greater than she can imagine. The memory fades as the present battle intensifies. The mountains of gold in the vault begin to shake. The demon Belial roars that the time for talking is over. It unleashes a massive swirling storm of golden energy, boasting that their weak abilities cannot stand against its endless power. The golden storm surrounds the Night Hound and Dolores as they stand together inside the red protective circle. Amid the chaos, Dolores begins to chant a powerful prayer. Her voice rings out as she recites scripture. The Lord is a strong castle, a shield and weapon against ruin. The Night Hound watches, amazed by the power flowing from her. With her hands clasped, Dolores continues her prayer, wishing to share the burden he carries and to be someone he can depend on. She calls for a mighty general to appear and fight beside her. Her prayer reaches its height. She declares that if the Night Hound truly trusts her, if he truly sees her as a comrade and not someone who only needs protection, then he must tell her his name. With tears running down her face and her whole body shining with a strong golden light, she makes one last desperate request. She asks to know the sacred name of the warrior she is giving power to. The air becomes completely still for a moment. Then a quiet, unfamiliar voice breaks through the silence. He speaks a single syllable. Dolores's eyes open at once. Her face shows complete shock as she realizes whose voice it is and what name she just heard. As the golden light shines on him, the Night Hound's mask and hood seem to fade, revealing the face of the young man she knows. He looks at her, his red eye meeting her gaze, and he confirms who he is. It is Vicar.